Welcome to Top of Search with Robyn and Abe, where we talk about e-commerce, Amazon, and more.
Welcome to Top of Search. I'm Abe Shamali, and I have with me today Robyn Johnson. I'm actually going to have her with me every day. We're a show in which we talk about e-commerce. To start off the show, me and Robyn want to take a moment and a chance for you to understand a little bit about who we are. There's a separate episode floating around where Robyn talks to me about who I am, but today Robyn is going to have the spotlight shining on her. Some of you know Robyn already. She writes for a search engine journal. She writes for Search Engine Land, which are both amazing publications about the world of search, that covers Amazon and the internet also. So you can read a lot about how Robyn looks at the world of search. She is a internationally known speaker. She's spoken in the United States. She's spoken in Europe. And that's actually sort of how I met Robyn. We've bumped into each other at different shows. Bumping into each other turns into conversations, and conversations turn into a podcast, which is sort of what brings us here. And hopefully it's what has brought you here. But me talking about Robyn is the same as Robyn telling us her story. I met you, obviously, when you were sort of fully formed in the world of e-commerce. But before I met you, what got you from there to here? Like, did you always do e-commerce things, or did you do other things before e-commerce?
Yeah, so I definitely didn't start as an entrepreneur or as an e-commerce specialist. I was always a nerd. So I'll give you that. So in high school, I interned at like a web development agency, but it really mostly just kind of helped with stuff here and there. And then I was the webmaster for my school district as a senior in high school, which I don't want to say the year, but in the 1900s, it was something that was a little bit unique. But then I didn't really do much. I was always doing stuff on the web, but I had a bunch of different, kind of careers. I did a bunch of different things. My husband and I actually met working at Kinko's making copies. If you don't know, my husband and I are partners in our agency. So he does all the advertising and reporting and analytical stuff. And I do a lot of the creative and the marketing and the operational stuff. So we kind of divide. He's the yin to my yang, but we didn't start as an agency either. I was actually a youth minister. And when you work for the church, they said the benefits are out of this world, because I will tell you the pay is not. And my son got sick, and they were actually testing him for a zillion things. We spent time at Phoenix Children's Hospital. We went from specialist to specialist. At one point, they were even testing him for Job's disease, like Job from the Bible. And, my first instinct wasn't like, oh, let's do whatever test we need. It was, how do I keep this kid alive and not lose the house? And we were doing like the Dave Ramsey thing at the time. And I couldn't even afford the $100 for the Dave Ramsey thing. We were just so broke. And we started buying things at garage sale. My son's first sight word was garage, because it was a great time to start a business, because I had an infant and a toddler. And we started buying things at garage sales, selling them on Craigslist and then eBay and then Amazon. In a few short years, we built that up to $1 million. Now you're like, $1 million, no big deal. But, in 2010, $1 million in Amazon sales was a bigger deal. And we started, selling at high volumes. We did retail arbitrage. We did wholesale. As we started to get bigger, we did a lot of coaching for high volume sellers, things on focusing on profitability. And then depending on where you consider it started, because I was actively starting it probably in 2014, 2015. But it took a couple of years where I would say we had enough clients where I could say we were a real agency. Because we saw what a big issue Amazon was for brands. And we've worked with everything from small, I have an idea and I've got the product and I'm launching it, all the way up to publicly traded companies. We do full management. So we do the advertising, the compliance. We don't do the testing, but like the submitting it, seller support. We have 3 people that their job is just filing seller support tickets, being what we call professionally persistent with seller support. And then we also handle like the creative. And so what I love about my business is that it's always changing. I've got a lot of ADHD. And so every year there's a new puzzle, a new piece to fix. And I love knowing, marketing is not going to save the world. And you could probably make arguments that it does the opposite, but I know that the work that we do allows people to hire more people and send their daughter to dance class. And so for that reason, it's really, really something that I love. And I've built this team of people that are just truly extraordinary human beings. And that, I love working with. I hear a lot of my friends that have like traditional employment situations And they're like, oh, I hate Susie. Ah. And I'm like, I don't have any Susies on my team. I only have people I really love. And that's been really great. And I've got to meet these amazing people that the chances of Abe and I meeting if we had not done Amazon are negative 400. We don't have a lot of commonality without this Amazon thing to bind us. But I've met these extraordinary people all over the world, and I've got to learn so much over the last 10 years.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. It's funny because you mentioned your ADHD and I'm the same way. And when I hear someone talking, my brain will lock on a thing and all of the rest sort of goes by. So I have to concentrate extra when there's like a lot of details. And your path is one which has wound a lot, sort of like mine, maybe even a little bit more. But I got to say, the first question I have to ask is that when you are the administrator of your school's website, does this ever give you access to grades?
No. Completely separate. Completely separate.
You don't have access to grades. Are you even working on a school computer system? It's sort of irrelevant at that point.
Well, I'm always very much a goody two-shoe rule follower. And so even if I had access, it probably wouldn't have occurred to me to do anything nefarious.
If you were looking at that cute Nate across the classroom, would you not have helped him to get to make it to the next year's school if he needed to?
Ironically, I don't think Nate and I would have been friends in high school. We ran in very different circles. I was I've been an overachiever for a little bit. So I was captain of the color guard and president of, I was president of the theater club and vice president of Future Business Leaders of America and on academic decathlon. And, I did all of these things. And Nate was very into baseball and, he was very into sports. And, I went to high school. I went to two very different high schools, but the one I graduated from was very small. So there were a lot of jocks that were in kind of like my physics and calculus classes, but I think that we would have not had a lot to talk about, but I met Nate after he had been in the Marines. But we met very young. I was like 19 when we.
Boy, now I know like 11 extra things about Nate also that I didn't know about him before. But I also learned that you will not cheat the system for your loved ones. And if Nate is ever on trial, he's in trouble. All right. Well, listen, it's the details that matter. But going back to the actual reason and the way that I know you, again, you opened up a lot of stuff. But the one thing you didn't talk about, the one thing which is super interesting to me is the speaking and things you've done that are sort of public facing or talking to the world. You talked about brands you've worked with and consulting and large companies and selling things. But I'm always interested in how a person gets onto a stage, and that is a thing I've always been impressed with. I've been impressed with the fact that you have been on a lot of stages and times when I've seen you speak, you are a natural at it. So tell me a little bit about how you got onto the stage the first time. How, tell me more about this, because that's the thing that I know the least about.
So, I always loved being able to present and share, so I did theater in high school and some college. And then when I was a youth minister, you're presenting, you're doing speaking things every week. And I always tell people after you try to sell chastity to teenagers, everything else is easy. I first started speaking on Amazon, I met some people that were part of this organization called the IMA, the Internet Merchants Association, and they had this event that they were running that happened at ASD back in the day when all Amazon sellers, I feel like, went to ASD. I actually ended up coordinating those things after a few years. That led to, speaking there, led to speaking at other conferences at the time, like Rocky Mountain Reseller conferences. Rest in peace. That conference was amazing and we miss it. And then from there, I started to reach out because I had a lot of friends that would introduce me to friends. And so then I was getting mentored for a while by Sharon Lechter, who co-wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so that kind of introduced me to that circle. And then from there, I met somebody who worked at Bruce Clay, Mindy Weinstein, who's amazing and just got her PhD writing about scarcity. She's amazing. She introduced me to the people at PubCon. And so that's kind of how I started speaking in the non-Amazon space, talking about conferences that are geared towards like marketing in general. So speaking at things like PubCom, I'm speaking at SMX Munich and I spoke at SMX London last year. I think the big value that I get from being involved in the larger digital marketing community is a lot of times I feel like Amazon will mimic what's working and sometimes what's not working in Google and Meta. And so by seeing what's happening in their industry that's a little bit more mature, it helps give me better clarity into where potentially Amazon might be going in the next few years. And it kind of helps me stay focused on that blue ocean for us and for our clients.
So as always, that leads me in multiple directions at once. So the first thing I'm going to say as an aside, for anybody that does not know who Bruce Clay is, he is one of the masters in the world of marketing. And if you can find, I don't know if he's written books or just articles. I think he's written books. If you can get your hands on things written by Bruce Clay, you will be better at marketing afterwards. So Robyn, the fact that you have been close to his world is definitely, that definitely is a marker of high quality for sure. Now, the other part of that is you mentioned Amazon, Amazon following after Meta, Amazon following after Google. I know you and I know Nate through the Amazon world, but would I be correct to deduce that you also work in the worlds of Google and Meta? Do you run advertising in those spaces? How are you connected to that?
So I have people that we refer and work closely. So the nice thing about building that network is that I know some of the best people in the industry if you want them to run Meta, or if you want somebody that will run Google, or if you need an SEO. It's been amazing to get like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. Oh, you're the SEO for Disney, or you're the SEO for weather.com. And it's been really cool to listen to what they say and really learn the differences. I dabble in it, but not enough where I don't like to learn on other people's dime. So we focus on one thing. So we only run Amazon, Walmart. Occasionally we'll run other markets like eBay or Mercado Libre, things along those lines. But for the most part, we focus on one thing, and that's marketplaces. But it helps, but staying connected to those things helps me to understand where our clients might be. For example, if a client had been using, organic SEO on Google in order to drive a lot of their primary traffic and brand affinity and search volume to Amazon, and maybe they were using private blog networks or something like that in the helpful content update, by watching that, I can see, oh, that traffic's going to go away for them. So how can we start to build that up and build new moats for their business, knowing that they're going to potentially lose and might not recover that organic traffic?
Yeah, it is an interesting world and how these big monstrous companies all drive traffic and eyeballs, and the eyeballs move between them, and being able to navigate how those shoppers move around and the path they take almost always ends up sort of at Amazon, or most of the time ends up at Amazon. So focusing there is the way to really help people sell things. So tell me a little bit more about your agency. I know obviously that you run it with Nate. We are sort of in the same space. We both do a little bit of ads, but I think you cover a different scope of things. So tell us, what does Marketplace Blueprint do for people?
So most of our clientele is actually not Amazon native. So they are, we do have several private label brands, and we have companies that started and grew, and we're helping them continue to expand their growth, because a lot of times what got you here won't get you there. And so we're kind of helping brands over that hump. But we have a lot of brands that are in, they come to us and say, we're in Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, Target, and we're having trouble getting Amazon to work for us, or we lost our vendor account and we're trying to figure out how to make Amazon work under this new arrangement. And so for those folks, a lot of times, if you're in the Amazon world, you know that Amazon and keeping up with everything is a full-time job in of itself. So what we really provide is the ability to kind of help navigate and guide. We will do the advertising, and then we also will do the creative. We kind of roll that into the pricing, as well as compliance and seller support issues. And then we let them know, hey, this new beta program is available. And so we're kind of keeping an eye and keeping aware for them. So basically, they need to keep the inventory in stock. The episode we recorded with you, talking about how, they still need to be involved. But our goal is to really handle the entire channel for them. And one of the advantages that brings is that when the advertising team is running something and they see a new keyword perform or underperform, it allows us to let the creative team know we might need to make a change or test something in the A/B test a title or bullet, or we see a conversion or a click-through rate drop. Well, let's change the primary image. And it also actually helps us to catch indexing issues as well. So because we don't use AI, we use rule-based tools and, like real person making a strategy, it allows us to say the percentage of ad sales really went up significantly all of a sudden on this product that had been doing much better. We need to see if this product got de-indexed. And lo and behold, Amazon now thinks that this baby spoon is a sexual wellness product. So we have to kind of have our team work to fight that as well.
My brain is like twisted trying to think about what I should say with that. We'll keep it G-rated for at least this episode. Wow, that's there's definitely a lot there. We should probably have an episode in which we have a showdown between one of the AI people and one of the rule-based people, because the AI people are very self-assured in how they think their systems are effective, and rules-based people are very much on the opposite side of the fence. So a battle royale maybe should be somewhere in the future.
I think that there are times and places where AI tools work, but we've done a lot of audit on AI tool accounts, and we often find that sometimes when the AI works, it's great.
It's funny because I used to say the AI tools are I used to be very against a lot of these AI tools. There is a piece of perspective I got once that sort of changed my mind a little bit. So part of my work is consulting, just plain consulting, in which I help people with their businesses. There's a value to having a sort of therapist that you can talk about the numbers of your business with and get perspective.
I would love to build on that. So one of, I think AI can work great if there are certain situations, but AI isn't going, some of the conversations we might have with a client might be, our primary selling product has 4 variations and blue is the best seller, but we're not going to get that shipment from blue in time. What should we do? All right, well, let's pull back this piece here. Let's discount all of the other colors, leave blue at full price, maybe inch. So it allows us to have creative strategies. AI doesn't know that you're going to sell out of a product, so we should pull back the ad or lower the discount, or let's test some price elasticity, or we've been having a reseller problem, and now that's affected our reference price. So we need to take that into consideration as we look at ACOS and other things, as we're looking at account performance. I think that that's really where having somebody that's actively making and adjusting a strategy can really bring value. And that would be the case for both of our companies.
No, so I remembered what I was going to say. When we audit accounts and when you audit accounts, you're generally looking at an account that is not working well, simply is not working well. That's universally what you see. That's the reason they're coming to you to discuss their account. But the reality is that there are people who are perfectly happy with it and you just never hear from them. And they are not running around with a banner saying, I love this software company. They are just getting an account that works right. They might not realize that there's room for improvement, or they actually might have an account that works well. But the reality is that those software companies are not really train wrecks. There are certain AI companies in the ad world that have reputations for being the worst. Like if we look at an account from a certain company, everyone knows that it's just a disaster to unwind. But I have to say, there are situations where people are evangelists for that software. And these are not people who are full of it. These are people who are really, really smart, and they love this software, which is considered reputationally to be a train wreck. So where am I going? The point is that there actually might be a thing for the AI people and the rule-based people to argue about. There might be holes in each way, because the truth is, with rule-based software or rules-based systems, there's a lot of times where an unusual situation doesn't get adapted to fast enough by your rules, and there are situations where rules bump into each other, where you might have a piece of data that 2 different rules want to do a thing with. So one rule might want to make one change, and a different rule might want to make the exact opposite change based on a thing that happened. And then they're bouncing into each other. Yeah. Anyway, AI tools will have their space, but yeah.
And there's time where maybe a company doesn't have, maybe they have a low ad budget, where it doesn't make sense to bring in an agency. And the depth of knowledge that's required to do rule-based bidding effectively, the bar is a lot higher. So, it can be that it provides access. Having an article written by AI by itself is probably not going to be great. But if you're monitoring it and changing it and editing and watching, then you're able to increase that. Is it the same as having Tolstoy, being raised from the dead and writing your article? Probably not. But is it enough to get the job done and keep you moving forward to grow to where you can afford maybe more in-depth help? Then absolutely.
Putting AI aside and putting the battle royale aside, I know that you do good work. Obviously, I've had enough conversations with Nate to know that he's really, really good at what he does with Amazon. And in terms of preparing for this podcast and our first couple of episodes, the amount of preparations you have roped me through and pulled me through and steered me along with is far in excess of the prep I would have done on my own. So if you're doing that, if you're managing accounts and working with brands that same way, they are definitely in good hands. But having said that in a vague way, what would you say makes you a good choice for someone looking, for a full stack assistant in Amazon and marketplaces?
It's kind of like you. I want somebody that's willing to participate in the process, active inventory, having enough budget to make a difference. But what I think we can really provide is really listening to who is your ideal client. How can we adjust the marketing, the content, the creative, the advertising, kind of looking at your sales funnel as a whole, and then adjusting for what different caveats we might need. So it might be that we need to figure out how we're going to handle resellers, not because resellers are bad. I started as a reseller, but they definitely impact your ability to run ads. Now they're changing a lot of things with the reference price, and so they can really cause some havoc there. So if you're a brick and mortar retailer, we might need to talk about Amazon specific SKUs. If you are an Amazon seller that's doing amazing and you're about to go into brick and mortar, we might need to have conversations specifically about how you want to send those SKUs over. How do we want to package those things? And so what we'd like to do is really look at the client, put ourselves as if we were co-owners in that business and giving what we know from the space and referring people as needed to different resources, but really looking at, I'm all about intentionality. So I believe that, we always want to look at what is the intention of our meeting? What is the intention of, these actions that we're doing, making sure that each of the things that we're doing is pulling the brand, pulling the individual that we're working with closer to their long-term goals, and not getting caught up in testing new things, trying new things, but not getting so caught up in the shiny objects. We really believe that fundamentals first, that you have to have those good fundamental pieces. And we want to make sure that we're not just sugar, that we're looking at really providing the substantial building blocks you need in order to grow your brand. And sometimes that means filling in spaces. If an entrepreneur came into this door accidentally, which, a lot of us have, kind of filling in some of those pieces, maybe it's redoing the brand book or creating more of a style guideline, or really re-looking at how packages could be redone from being retail brick and mortar ready to being retail ready on the e-commerce side. So I think that and because we have a decent sized team, we have a lot of former Amazonians. I would say probably 75% of our team worked at Amazon for at least 2 to 3 years before they came to us. And so having that depth of knowledge and having people that have been working within our agency for a long period of time, we have some that have been with us 10 years, 4, 6 years. We have developed cadences. We're very process oriented, because we want to make sure we're using the resources of each company as efficiently as possible.
That is an amazing approach. And it's funny because it directly ties into, I mentioned it before, but the amount of prep, and it looks like you really dot the I's and cross the T's and cover all of those bases.
And that doesn't mean we don't make mistakes or, we don't miss an intentionality, or every business does, but we really We try to embrace that customer obsession.
Nobody is perfect. There is nobody in the history of anything has been perfect 100% of the time. And the reality is things happen. Even when you do all the right things, even when you have all the right tensions, there are things out of our control. There are things that don't work as expected. And, there are times when you just blink and a thing goes by. That's it. But when you do the right things, the right results happen. That is a lot. And that lot really translates into good results for the people you work with. So they are definitely in good hands. On that amazing note, I think this wraps up another episode of Top of Search. I've definitely enjoyed recording this. I hope you have enjoyed being the person on the hot seat today from me. And I really hope for all of our listeners, I hope you guys have enjoyed us talking a little bit about ourselves for a change. And we look forward to giving you more of this in the future.
Thanks for listening to the Top of Search podcast. Have a burning question you would like answered or a topic you would like featured in a future episode? You can submit it at topoffsearchshow.com. If you love the episode, subscribe and leave a review. Each month, we'll be selecting one reviewer to win a one-on-one call with your choice of Abe or Robyn. Winners will be announced at the end of the first episode of every month.